Hello, everybody. Welcome to our introductory class, Introduction to Ashlag Kaballah class. We've been on hiatus for about, how long have we been, Shlomo, has it been since we've had a class? A month?
2 months.
2 months. So it's been a while. Obviously, there's a war going on and there were some holidays and we have plenty of excuses. We don't need to list them all about why we didn't have classes for close to 2 months. So I think it's a good time for us to regroup and try to, talk a little bit about, have an overview of what we're trying to accomplish here and what we're doing here. So let's see. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is that, I think a lot of people who are watching these classes are probably watching the classes somewhat casually. They're not watching every single class. They're watching, they're picking up little snippets, which is fine, which is great. I just think we should talk about how to utilize these classes effectively. And so, Kaballah is its own wisdom that is a separate, they call the inner aspect of Torah. And so there's one Torah, and the entire Torah is trying to accomplish the same thing. But the question is, what is the thing that the Torah is trying to accomplish? And so, what I would suggest is that for people who are listening to these classes casually, and if you happen to be a observant Jewish person who's already studying Torah, which is many of our students here, not all of them, probably not even the majority, but certainly there are, a large portion of the people who are watching these classes are observant Torah Jews who are practicing the Torah and mitzvos, all the commandments and all of the observances and guidelines, halacha it's called. And so I think that just a word to somebody who's casually watching these classes and is not sticking around for the other class that we give, which is much more, is reading from the actual articles of Bala Sulam. So I would just say to those people is that, you can use Kabbalah study to inform the rest of your practice. And so Kabbalah is very good, even if you don't become a Kabbalist and you don't study Kabbalah all day and night, which some people do. It helps us to try to understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish in Torah and mitzvos. It's one Torah. All of these different parts come together in a very, very beautiful way. And so if a person, sometimes you meet people and they're like, they're doing everything, but they're not 100% sure what it is. They're serving God. They want to improve themselves, whatever those motivations are. And so I think that if you're listening to this classes, infrequently and just once in a while, it might be a helpful tool. And if you're not a religious person or you're not even a Jewish person and you're watching these classes, then I think that ironically, it could be a little bit easier to study Kabbalah. It's an irony, The Lubavitcher Rebbe famously said that if you want to be a Torah person, you have to become good at paradoxes. Sometimes things are not intuitive. That's why we study Gemara, right? If you study Gemara, they have they come up with a situation, and then they're all different rabbis are discussing, different sages are discussing, I think we should do it this way. And the other person says the exact opposite. And then a third person comes in and says something that's completely different from the first two. And so what is going on there? And so basically, there are many paradoxes in Torah learning. And so you have the inside and the outside of some things. And that is literally the work of Kabbalah, is how do we transcend our differences? How do we come into balance? How do we unify above our differences, men and women, the holy and the profane, this world and the spiritual world, right? The material world and the spiritual world, the body and the soul. These are all paradoxes, and so that's literally is the study of Kabbalah, is the study of how do we unify paradoxes. That literally is the whole system. As the more a person learns Kabbalah, they will see that you have a force in nature, gevura, which means stringency, and then you have a parallel force that is oppositional, which is chesed. And so we're trying to learn how to balance these extremes in life and bring them all into a beautiful tapestry that works in unison to achieve all these higher goals, which is the revelation of godliness, to be able to perceive God in a more revealed way. That is a goal of Kabbalah. Become unified inside yourself and to become unified with your friends and your partner and society. And so these are all things that we're going to learn about in Kabbalah. And so I was just making the point that if you are somebody who's listening to this and found this clip on YouTube and you're not Jewish or you're not observant, ironically, you might have an easier time because when we're studying the revealed Torah and we're studying Kabbalah, sometimes they don't necessarily go together. And so I'll give you an example. Example would be if you're in a relationship, you have a spouse or you have a wife or even a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and you have the exterior of the relationship, how you behave. And so you can come home and your wife could be like, you could have done everything good that day, right? You went to work and you came home straight from home and you did all the chores that you were supposed to do. You did everything on the exterior of the relationship you did right, but yet your wife is still angry at you. Why is she angry at you? She's angry at you because you didn't feel the right way about it. She doesn't like that you're like checking out emotionally. You're not, you came and you did everything robotically, but you didn't come in. So you see that there's these two different, not necessarily, we're not talking about the same thing all the time. Sometimes we're talking about, in Kabbalah, we're talking about kavanah, about our intentions. So a person could be serving God and doing all of the laws, and they can be going to prayers 3 times a day, and they can be doing all these things. And yet they can end up in a situation where they're not thinking about God, or they're not particularly even happy with God. Right? And so these two things don't necessarily line up. And so we have so as an observant Jew who's doing the revealed Torah, who's doing all the laws, following all the laws, sometimes they can lose track of how they're feeling about doing the laws. Why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I want to unify all of humanity and I want to bring peace to the world? Or am I doing it because I want a reward and I think that somehow if I do these things, God is going to then reward me either in this world with blessings for being healthy or being wealthy or being, right, all these different reasons that you might have, and that's not necessarily wrong, but it's in Kabbalah we're examining these things and we're trying to so it's a part of the Torah that is could be very informative for somebody who's not looking to become a Kabbalist, but they are looking to understand why they're living their life the way they are as an observant Jew or even as a person. And so that was the first thing that I wanted to say. And the other thing I wanted to say is I wanted to talk a little bit about, since we haven't been here for 2 months, I wanted to talk about the election just very short. I wanted to say that, that it, I think, at least for me, has crystallized a lot of what the issues are. The war, first of all, here in Israel. We're living in a war zone here in Tzfat in northern Israel. But the election, I think, has done the same thing for a lot of people, which is really kind of crystallized what a terrible situation the world is in and how polarized everybody is and how people are. I have very close friends. I worked in Hollywood for many years and I was considered myself a liberal. I don't know if I consider myself a progressive. I'm not sure I really understood what a progressive was, but I said I certainly had friends in my community and my friends were all liberals and we thought in a certain way. And so a lot of my friends, I spent an hour on the phone with a friend of mine, one of my best friends, and I know her for 25, 30 years, and she's very liberal. But we love each other, and her and her husband are both my very dear friends, and it was painful to see like how there's a disconnect and how what I think is right, somebody else who I think is a good person thinks it's wrong, and vice versa. And so, what I would like to say here about what we're doing here is that literally some people, there's a lot of misinformation about what Kabbalah is, and people think it's all these different things. They think it's like you're going to learn magic tricks, or you're going to be able to read people's minds, or you're going to be, become much smarter than everybody else. Whatever the perceptions are of what Kabbalah is, or some people think it's a waste of time. Some people think that it's some archaic nonsense, that it's like some old world stuff that's just, why would anybody want to like revisit things that were talked about thousands of years ago. But the wisdom of Kabbalah is a very, very practical, very current wisdom. And it's literally the Kabbalists from 2,000 years ago said that this generation is the generation that they were writing their books for, which is very hard to believe and understand. Their point is that as we have thousands of years of the evolution of consciousness, that we were going to get to a global place, which is like a birth for humanity, because now all of a sudden everybody is a person. Before, if I lived in England and I was like, and you had to get on a boat and go for 4 months to see people from a different place, you weren't that worried about them, if they were going to live or they were going to die or how they dressed. You didn't care because you were isolated and you were insulated from them. Mm-hmm. But now we have a global situation where we are together with everybody, even people who don't agree with us, and even if people who hate us can reach out and do something to us. It's immediate. And so literally in that situation, this is God telling us And if you have a problem with the word God, that's a whole other class. But let's not get into what we think, who we think God is and what we think God is. But if there is a force, a higher force that's acting on us in nature, because one of the names of God is nature, Elohim in Torah Judaism is a name for God, and it means the God of nature, the God in nature, the God that manifests in the physical world. What?
Maybe hiding in nature?
Hiding, but not only hiding, revealing. You have, so we're talking about oppositional forces. So the hiding is the other, if you have a coin, one side of the coin is being hidden and the other side is being revealed. And so these two things, and this is a very good, you've been studying here for a while, so you picked up on, this is what we learn in Kabbalah, is that without the revelation, without the hiddenness, there is no revelation. Without the revelation, there's no hiddenness. And so these two things, these opposites come together. So without being separated, there's no coming together. Without coming together, right? So these are the thing that we're looking for, and the opposite are integral to each other, and we're trying to learn how do you balance them, and how do you come into alignment with all of these different forces within yourself and within society, and with nature. This is exactly what we're studying, and so I hope that if as we continue to learn here, that people start to see, to try to connect, all the feelings that they're having inside of themselves with what's going on here. This is not a wisdom like being a engineer, where the thing that you're building is outside of yourself. No, we are talking about the makeup of all of creation, and that means that everything that's happening inside of you, and everything that's happening inside of all the rocks and plants and animals and people, and even in the higher consciousness, spheres of higher consciousness, which in Kabbalah we call spheros. These are all we're learning about all of these things in the whole entire system of creation. Okay, this is the book that we've been learning from. It's called The Inner Work, and it's a compilation of just interesting excerpts that the author, who is a friend of mine, and he's also a Kabbalist who's been studying for many, many years, probably 30 years, and he translates books, and so he took a compilation of different these snippets from the articles of the Baal HaSulam. So the Baal HaSulam, Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag, is a modern Kabbalist, he's not that modern. He's from 75 years ago, I think. Maybe he passed away, I think, I'm not sure, in the 20s or 30s or 40s, or maybe in the 50s. Anyway, the point is that since he was part of this generation, in Kabbalah, we talk about the generations, and we talk about how each generation is another opportunity to revisit the same issues and to take the process further. It's an evolution of consciousness. So each generation, we move forward and we get a little bit more unified. The world becomes, in 6,000 years, the world has become more unified. Now, becoming more unified is a good thing if you're getting along, and it's a bad thing if you're not getting along, right? So if somebody doesn't like you and they want to kill you, you build a wall. And so this is exactly what we're trying to say. And so if you look at Torah Judaism, you see that everything works on these principles. You have the weekdays, and then you have a separate day that is balancing the 6 days of the week, which is the Sabbath, and we're not going to go into that, but you could do it with everything. You could say that you have a marriage, and Torah Judaism, the man and the woman come together after the woman goes to the ritual bath, and then they have relations, and then they separate for 2 weeks. I don't know, people who don't know about this might be shocked, but a religious Jewish couple, they separate for a certain number of days in the month. They don't sleep in the same bed. And so these are all of the Torah Judaism, all of the rituals that we do, the mitzvot, are like a manifest meditation of everything that we're talking about in Kabbalah. So we're actually trying to live out these principles by looking at things, organizing things by saying this is female and this is male. Let's separate them. Let's understand them. Let's see them in their full power. And then let's see how we're going to try to unify them. And so that process in Kabbalah is the process that leads to higher consciousness, to becoming more similar to the Creator. Now, how is that possible? It's possible because if you and I are both rich guys, you have a pickle factory and I have trucks. So I'm making money and you're making money, and we see each other, but then one day we realize, hey, we want to make a partnership, a marriage, a business marriage, where we get together and we put your pickles on my truck and we deliver it to the supermarket. So what happened here? We had two different things that have no purpose, no reason to become unified, but then we have a higher goal, and when we have a higher goal, we're able to find unity between us, even though, let's say, you speak Italian and I speak French, or let's say you're, 30 years old and I'm 60 years old. But let's say all these reasons why we would never want to be together, because we're different. You like baseball and I like movies. So why we wouldn't come together? But if we have a higher goal, that we want to do something together and make money, that higher goal is what allows us to come together. And so this is literally the method called Torah and Mitzvos, which is what we're studying, which is the inner aspect of that is called Kaballah and Chassidut. And we've talked, I'm not going to digress into Chassidut and Kaballah and how they're the same and how they're different and how we should think about them. I will just say that out loud, because I've said many times, that I'm not only a student of Ashlag Kaballah, but I also am a Chabad Chassid. I also follow the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and I consider the Rebbe my Rebbe, and I consider the Rebbe himself, all the Rebbes of Chabad say that Chassidut is an additional revelation on top of Kabbalah. And for us to understand that, we'd have to do a lot of studying, and certainly there's people who understand what I'm saying because they study Chassidut and they study Kabbalah, and so let's not go into that, but this is all things that we've been covering in this class and we'll continue to study. So I'm just going to do, since these are just excerpts, and we've been through a lot of this book, we've done probably 60 to 70% of this book already, I'm just going to randomly open it up and see what we come to. I'll start reading, and then we can discuss it, and we can see if there's anything comes to mind, and maybe we'll find that as I open the book randomly, we find that we find the exact perfect quote for what we're talking about, which happens sometimes, because as we call it divine providence, that really, in the truth of reality, is that God is through nature and through other forces above nature. God is, every single thing that's happening is being orchestrated, is being programmed into reality, which is very hard for us to understand, even to understand what that could possibly mean. But everything is happening for a purpose, every single thing, except for very, very small, insignificant things. The Baal HaSulam says that every last thing, so if the fact that I have a cup of water here actually means something, and every single thing is happening for a very purposeful reason that we can't possibly understand, and everything is connected. So let's see what happens when we open the book and just start to read. At first, we work spiritually only when it benefits our self-interest. As we progress spiritually, we come to understand that spiritual work is working to go beyond self-interest. Then the true spiritual work begins. Let me read it again. At first, we work spiritually only when it benefits our self-interest. As we progress spiritually, we come to understand that the spiritual work is working to go beyond self-interest. Then the true spiritual work begins. Okay, so of course, it's perfectly applicable because every single one of these excerpts is going to tie into what we just spoke about. So here we see that we have a paradox. We have my self-interest, and we have becoming selfless. Two opposite forces, two opposite intentions. So I'm working to make myself popular in high school or college or at work. I'm not working to make you popular. I'm working to make me popular. I want to be the one who everybody thinks is the best lawyer at the law firm. I'm not thinking about making you the best lawyer. And then find out, as I'm doing this work, that there's an opposite impulse, an opposite feeling. It's opposite. I'm interested in myself, and now all of a sudden, as I start to do this spiritual work, I say, you know what? There's a higher way of operating where I care about other people. First, I start off, I care about my wife and my kids and my friends, and then I care about my community, right? And then I care about my country, and then I care about, all of humanity, and then I care about all of humanity and nature and right? So I'm constantly adding these things on top. And so this is the study of Kabbalah, is how do I harness my self-interest to add an additional soul, it's called in Kabbalah. We have 5 souls. So we have the soul, the animal soul, which is your ego and your self-interest. I want to get money so I can buy stuff. I don't want to give away money so other people can buy stuff, right? I'm thinking about myself. But as I evolve and as I understand that treating other people better and well and loving other people is actually something that I would enjoy. And so here he's telling you, here the Baal HaSulam is telling you, is that when you first want to go to, spirituality, you say, oh, you know what? I want to feel balanced. I want to feel calm. So I start going to yoga. Why am I going to yoga? Am I going to yoga because I want to help everybody? No, I'm going to yoga because I want to feel good. And I want to feel relaxed. I want to feel balanced. I want to feel connected to the universe. All these things. Right? I want to feel connected, my soul and my body. I want there to be a marriage, a unification between my soul and my body. I want to feel. You don't have to be a religious person. You don't have to be engaging God to have a feeling that you want your soul, if you call those that your emotional qualities and your desires internally, you want you want to feel in balance with your physical body. So if you're trying to become happy, and that's why you became a lawyer, and then your body is not feeling happy, then you want to work, right? So you started, and lo and behold, you start to do yoga, let's say, halavai, and from that place you start to become more relaxed, and you start to become more aware of your body and your soul. You start to feel this balance, and perhaps that is a starting point for you to say, I want to feel that balance with my partner in life and with my community. And people today, they say, oh, I want to feel the oneness with the universe, right? And so for us to understand that Torah Judaism in a nutshell, and why Torah Judaism and how Torah Judaism is perhaps different than other systems, we want in Torah Judaism to connect all the oneness, not just some of the oneness. And so we want to connect fully with not only ourselves, and not only our bodies, and not only our spouses, and not only our friends, not only our community, not only our country, not only the whole entire globe, but we want to identify, you want to climb the ladder of consciousness until we identify the creator force and say, oh, I feel that there is an energy that is going through all of these things, these 4 levels of creation. I feel there's rocks, there's plants, there's animals, and there's the creative force, people, Adam HaRishon, Adam Kadmon, the creative force, and we're going to learn over and over again. We'll learn about what that means in depth. We keep going over the same things, and it's the wisdom of Kabbalah can be very, very simple, but it will also be very, very complicated and in depth. But just for our conversation here, we go through these concentric circles from self to greater and greater connection to everybody around us, right? And as we do that, as we feel more connected with the rocks and the plants and the people and all of nature and all of humanity, we start to be aware, we start to become more sensitive to the fact that there is an energy, a frequency, a force. We call it in Kabbalah light in vessels, that there's light. It doesn't mean light like we're talking about the lights that we have in here. We're talking about this energy that is pulsing through everything, that is coming from the creator who created everything, so that he can have a relationship with us. And so if you want to understand Torah Judaism and you want to compare it to other systems, if you're a person who is on a spiritual journey and you're trying to look around and search around different systems, know that the Torah system is that we want to have a relationship with the creator of everything and not have a relationship with the creation that is cut off from the creator. We want to have everything. So we don't want to have, we call it idol worship. And so idol worship in Torah Judaism is if I am happy, I want God to give me money, and then once he gives me the money, I don't want to talk to him anymore. I want to just have the money. Or I want to be happy with my wife, but I want to be bothered with this cosmic force. It's too much for me, it's too big. So we're trying to, in Torah Judaism, the first monotheistic religion and the most monotheistic religion, we're trying to unify all of creation. And when we do that, we build a kli, a vessel, a receptor, to feel all that there's a force behind creation, and that force can be, we can have a relationship with that force, because it's not a force, it's God, who we're perceiving through his actions. Okay? I said a lot here. Anything, you have something to respond, or does it make sense what I'm saying?
No, I'm processing.
It's a lot, right?
Yeah.
I'm going off. Okay, l'chaim, baruch atah Adonai melech haolam.
Amen.
Let's keep going. And guys, a lot of times when we study Kabbalah, we're not meant to actually understand everything that's being said. We're meant to feel it, and for it to be, to have a, we're trying to, a modern analogy that we give is that we're trying to change the focal point on a camera. So like if we're focused, if you have a long lens and you're focused here at this plane, and let's say 3 feet in front of your face, you can turn the dial and you can focus somewhere else. And so they have the same thing, halavai, with autism, with kids kids who are born with autism, they don't focus on the same plane of reality that everybody else is. That's a normative person would focus on the reality that's outside of themselves. Some people are like poets, or they're more interested in their internal world. They might not register that they're focused here, that they're not focused in the same place as you. You're like, hey, where are you? You're somewhere else. You're not where.
Yeah.
In Kabbalah, we're trying to refocus this lens, and we're trying to find, instead of focusing on what's happening in the material plane, we're trying to see that we're trying to shift the focus to a more internal place, and in that place, we start to see that there's roots and branches, that things are being caused at a higher plane of consciousness, and that they are cascading down to us here, and that this is not a starting point. This is actually where we are in the material plane, is actually the end of a process of lowering of these different worlds of consciousness. So I'm getting complicated, and so let's just move on to the next thing. But we're coming to the end.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just read one more, and then we will leave it here. And hopefully I will see everybody. I'm not going to read another one. I want to make a few announcements, and maybe it's not a good time to make the announcements because it's at the end of the class. But hopefully people will get the message. We started a class. Anybody who is a Sfat local. We started a class at 7:30 in the morning twice a week to learn Ashlag Kaballah off camera. So if anybody's interested in learning, if somebody lives in Sfat and they are available, we're learning at my house, at my apartment. It's very easy to find out where I live because it's a very small community. So if anybody's interested in learning Ashlag Kaballah, 7:30 in the morning, Mondays and Wednesdays, we have a group of 4 or 5 people already, and we just started. And so everybody's invited to that. And the next thing I wanted to say is that there is a rabbi, his name is Rabbi Gottlieb, and he is my teacher, and he's the teacher of a lot of people who study Ashlag Kaballah. He's perhaps the greatest teacher today studying Ashlag Kaballah, and he's online. His name is Rabbi Gottlieb, and if I will put it into the a link for this, but he speaks in Hebrew, and so if you're a Hebrew speaker, you can certainly take his classes online, and if you're an English speaker, there are many classes that have been translated by Avram Lowenthal into English, and so there's probably enough classes for a person to learn once, twice, 3 times a week for a year and learn Ashlag Kaballah. So if you're learning from me, it would be a very, very good, I would invite everybody to please to learn from a person who is much, much more, a much higher level of in Kabbalah and consciousness, and that'll be 2 things. One is you'll learn much more and you'll learn better, and the second is that you'll be able to check to see if anything I say is being said by me, because I'm trying to say to the best of my abilities what the Ashlag rabbis say. And so I'm not trying to say anything different, new. I have no chidushim. All I'm trying to do is repeat what I've been told in a way that is more agreeable to people who are like me. That's the trick. It's like I'm teaching. Lubavitch Rebbe said, you should teach people who are like you, and they'll listen to you more than they will listen to me. And so if you're inclined and this is something that's intriguing you and you feel connected, and there's more than a few people who have spoken to me in person saying that they're finding these classes very, very good, I invite you to please to find yourself in a rabbi who teaches Ashlag Kaballah, a gadol, and there are more than a few of them in Israel, and my recommendation would be Rabbi Gottlieb. There's also Rabbi Sinai, who's teaching in Tel Aviv, who's also amazing, and so, and there's Or HaGanuz, which is not too far from here. It's a whole community of Ashlag people. So that's it. Thank you very much, everybody. It's good to be back.